fifth graders. This is Mrs. Beck, and this is going to be your first video that we'll be using this year to introduce vocabulary for each week. Each week you will have this type of video to watch that will introduce the vocabulary. Also, it will introduce the weekly question that we have with our reading series, and also any ideas that we might need to cover for grammar or writing and that sort of thing. So typically you will watch a weekly introduction video, and that video mostly has to do with the vocabulary that you'll be seeing during the week. It is extremely important that you take time to write the words and the definitions of those words in your 3-subject notebook. That is the one that has 3 sections in it. The first section in your notebook will most likely be the vocabulary section. So you'll need to write these words each week on a new page, or however your teacher instructs you to do that, so that you will have those words that you may refer back to as we go on throughout the week. It is important that you get this assignment done because it is an expected item to get done on your checklist for most weeks, unless there's something strange that happens. But it was going to be probably the one thing that you can count on doing every week that we start a new unit or a new week. Sometimes we will have those weeks maybe last 2 weeks, so be mindful of that. Just know that the expectation is that as you watch the video, you are to write the words and their definition. It is a requirement, so you need to get this done. If you haven't got those done by Friday, we will probably ask you to take time out of your time to get that taken care of. It doesn't take long, so I would suggest to you that you get it done when you start your checklist every week. So with that being said, we're going to talk kind of through this, and I'll introduce the vocabulary for this first set of vocabulary words that we'll have for this year. First of all, you'll always see that the video starts with a title screen that has the unit and the week on it. And then it also usually has the essential question underneath of it. So you can see that this is Unit 1, Week 2, the weekly introduction, and what can lead us to rethink an idea is our essential question for this week. So the following slides will introduce you to your vocabulary words for this week. You need to be sure to write them in your 3-subject notebook in the vocabulary section. It is a required activity, don't forget that. We do take grades on this, so you need to make sure that you get that done. Remember, all you are writing is the word and what it means. You can either do it by coming up with your own definition, or you can write down what is there on the screen. You can stop the video if you need to do that so that you can write the words and definitions. It should take you about 10 minutes or so on a usual week. This week it might be a little bit longer because of all the explanations going on. All right, your first word to write is the word accomplish. And the word accomplish is a verb, which means it's an action word. And when you accomplish a task, you complete it successfully. So what you might want to write in your notebook is you can complete a task successfully. To complete a task successfully. So you see what I did as I took some of the words that were here and turned it into a definition. So if we look at this picture, this young man right over here says, well, with Grandpa's help, I was able to accomplish my project more quickly. Our next word is anxious. Anxious. Anxious is an adjective. It's a describing word. If you are anxious, you feel nervous and worried about what may happen. So for your definition, you might write something like, to feel nervous and worried about what might happen. So this is Rita in our picture here, and she is anxious about the research project. So she checked many sources. You can tell by her face she's a little anxious. The next word we have is assemble. Assemble, and it is a verb, so it's an action word. And when people assemble, they come together. So you could write for your definition, to come together. Seems like the same thing as if you were to put together a Lego kit or something like that. You would assemble it and make it come together. So in this particular picture, something that we haven't seen in a while is students assembling in a room, and when they do, we usually begin the program or a play or a concert, whatever it might be. Our next word is decipher. Decipher. It is a verb, which means it is an action word. Decipher means to figure out something that is difficult to understand. So that one really gives you a nice definition right there, to figure out something that is difficult to understand. And if you look at this picture, one of my favorite kind of cool things is looking at petroglyphs. So when archaeologists had to decipher this code in the rock drawings in order to understand what they meant, it was a long and difficult process because they didn't know what it meant. All right, the next word is distracted. Distracted can be a verb or an adjective. And in this picture, it's kind of both. So you could say something like, a friend distracted my attention and the dog swiped my frozen treat. Or you could say something like this, the girl was distracted and the dog ate her ice cream. So it can be two things, but either way, it means to draw attention away from what you are doing. So to draw attention away from what you are doing. The next word is navigate. Navigate. It is a verb, and that means it's an action word, And when you navigate, you find your way over or through an area. Over or through an area. So we're finding our way. And in this picture, these people are using a map to help navigate their way around a park. The next word is the word options. Options. It is a noun, and options are choices or alternatives. They are choices or alternatives. So the grocery store offered many different vegetable options. If you go to the farmer's market, there's lots of options there to pick from. Our last word for this week is the word retrace. It is a verb. Retrace is a verb, which means it's an action. And when you retrace your steps, you go back over them. So for your definition, you might write something to go back over something. And in this picture, Carl was able to retrace his footsteps to find his way home. You can kind of see them there in the mud right next to him. All right, fifth graders, this is the end of your introduction video. Be sure that you've written those words and meanings into your 3-subject notebook in the vocabulary section. If you haven't, rewatch the video and take time to do so right now. And that will be the end of our video, so you can push stop. And if you have questions, please be sure to ask.